All right, everybody, welcome to a special meeting of the minds. We've got Greg Scullard from Swirlds Labs. Greg, it's great to have you here with us. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I look forward to this hour with you guys.
No, absolutely. And we are very much looking forward to this ourselves. So we've got the team up here. I think let's go ahead and do some quick introductions because I think the Bank Social community knows who we are, but some of the Hedera people might not. And then the Bank Social community probably doesn't know who you are, Greg. And some of so let's just go with some quick intros really briefly. Greg, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Yeah, happy to do so. So, hi everyone from who don't know me. I have the privilege, or have had the privilege, of being involved in the growth of the Hedera network or evolution of the Hedera network since June 2017. So just over 5 years ago, and my primary role is that of developer advocate, which means that I get to talk to a wide variety of projects, including BankSocial, about how to best deploy solutions on the Hedera network. It's generally fairly technical, but not always. Sometimes we talk about more general principles and concepts, and I try and bring my experience to bear in building systems in the telecommunications industry for 24 something years in a previous life. Other than that, yeah, I guess being one of the veterans, I have unparalleled access to the bulk of the team back at Swirls Labs and beyond. So whenever John and his team ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, I generally have someone that I can lean on.
I think that was a quite a humble introduction of yourself there, Greg. Certainly, I think you've had a big hand in helping us steer and solution a lot of what we're working on, and so I think you have some great insights into what can be, should be, needs to be done. As far as
Thanks, John. If
well,
I
no,
if I,
thank
if I
you.
may say so, if I wasn't humble, I would brag about being humble, but I can't.
I think if I'm not mistaken, you are also or have been maybe a developer as well, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you want to go back that far, when I was 10 years old, I was given a computer by my parents, a ZX81. I'm not sure this will make sense to most on this call, I don't know. And basically taught myself how to write software. So I've been writing software and involved in writing software for 4 decades now, yeah.
And you've written software at Hedera as well, right? It was more so what I was getting
Um,
at.
oh yeah, you could say the first Java SDK was my creation. The first mirror node was my creation too. And some of the bits and pieces here and there, various demos that live in our GitHub, an auction demo that we ran, and many others. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so we'll get on to our team real quick. Let me introduce Anthony. Anthony, why don't you go ahead and kind of give the team or give the community an idea of what you do over here at Bank Social?
Hey everyone, my name is Anthony. I have been part of the BankSocial community since inception, May of 2021. Really been here since the beginning, officially coming on board earlier last year, managing the exchange and KYC operations at BankSocial. Amongst other things, kind of do a little bit of everything, working closely with John and Nate and the team. Really passionate about growing the BankSocial team and community, and excited for this new merge coming up to the Hedera network.
Absolutely. And I think Anthony's been real integral in the community development and staying involved with the community. I know he's leading some of our alpha testing, which is, if you guys are interested, Nate, I know you brought this up, so we can talk about it a little bit. The alpha testing of the new wallet. I think there are some spots for some people to join that. We're fairly tight on it, but the right people, I think there are some spots in there for people. We want to just say before we go any further, this is more of an open discussion, so feel free to jump up as we're talking if you hear anything that you'd like to ask a question on. I mean, Greg, there's there's nobody that has more insight into Hedera, maybe than Lehman and one or two other people than Mr. Scullard here. So, and then as far as what we're doing here at BankSocial, you kind of have the core group of people as well. Nathan, Nathaniel, why don't you give us a quick intro on yourself?
Hey everyone. Yeah. So I'm Nathaniel. I manage partnerships at BankSocial. Been here for 1.5 years. Like Anthony, I'm passionate about spreading the good word of BankSocial. Something some people might not know about me is my Hedera journey. So I joined the Hedera community about January of this year. And just in that short time, watching the growth of the community and the network has been a really cool ride to be a part of. So thankful to be here.
Excellent. Aaron, why don't you give us, I know you briefed us last time, but give us a quick intro again on what you do here and how you got here a little bit.
Yeah, hey guys, Erin Cartland, heading up product management here at BankSocial, and I am really excited to be here. Came from NYDIG right before this, but also CUNA Mutual, which is now TrueStage. So I'm a credit union veteran and a digital crypto asset enthusiast. And Greg, had a chance to listen to Zenobia on Boom is on the blockchain yesterday, and she did a great job. So I can't wait to hear all the good things that you guys are working on next.
And we'll lead into that. So, Greg, kind of, I think for most people here, especially the Hedera community, they might know the difference between Hedera and Swirlds Labs. And I know certainly we've had to learn that over the past few months. Why don't you just give us a quick briefer on Swirlds Labs, Hedera, and the relationship between the two? So as we talk about these different entities today, people have a basis for the foundation of what those two entities do and mean for the network.
Yeah, for sure. And I might even go a little bit further back in the genesis of Hedera, which was heralded from out of an entity called Swirlds. And the reason I'm calling this out is that Swirlds and Swirlds Labs are, I guess, Swirlds Labs is probably, I'm not sure legally, a subsidiary of Swirlds, but they perform very different functions in the Hedera ecosystem. And often Swirlds and Swirlds Labs are commingled in the same sentence. So Swirlds was the company that kind of created Hbar, brought it to the public, tried it out in private settings, in fact, in credit unions, amongst others, and then decided to go public with the Hedera network. So the co-founders of Swirlds, Mance and Lehman, built a team and essentially launched the Hedera network with a vision for that network to be operated by a council of Fortune 500s, NGOs, and more traditional Web3 players. So as when Hedera was created, I was hired into Swirlds in the first place. I was eventually transferred across to Hedera that was building a business development team, that were building a marketing team, an engineering team, and so on and so forth. And all while building up this council of governing council members, which is now stands at 29 of diverse industries across the world. And out of a desire to fully decentralize the Hedera operations, if you want, a first step occurred 2 years ago, I think, or thereabouts, with the creation of the Hedera Foundation, or the Hbar Foundation. And all of the business development team from Hedera moved to the Hbar Foundation. And the foundation was given a mandate and a sort of a pot of Hbar to go and grow the Hedera ecosystem by providing funding to different projects. So that left the engineering team, the marketing team under the Hedera banner. And just over a year ago, Lehman and Mance decided that they should retire from and I use the term retire carefully here, they should retire from Hedera as CEO and CTO and basically set up a completely independent organization called Swirlds Labs, which now essentially is the engineering function and marketing function for Hedera. And I guess what you would call a contract. So Swirlds Labs is contracted to Hedera to provide marketing and engineering services, which leaves Hedera essentially a bit of a shell of a company, if you want, or a shell of an organization, which is truly the governing council members and some operational staff to keep the wheels turning. So Hedera itself is now literally, just governing the network, and delegating the engineering, the grant giving, and so on and so forth to contracted organizations. So Swirlds Labs continues to develop the software. Manson Lehman is still deeply involved in everything that happens.
Well, isn't Swirlds a member of the council? Like Swirlds is a permanent member of the council, so they'll always be involved at the council level, on the Hedera level, which is important, I think. So
a very good call out, John. And in fact, that's why for me it's very, very important to differentiate between Swirlds and Swirlds Labs. Swirlds is a council member, and Manson Lehman are co-founders of Swirlds. Swirlds Labs is not a council member. It's an organization that provides services to the Hedera network. That's I guess how we got to be so many in this Hedera family.
And when we're looking at this was really one of the genesis points for BankSocial Financial to say, okay, if we're building the future of we're building the future of finance, where does it make sense to build it? And the governing council in this structure that you just described were a major factor. And I know some of our community, and maybe it's our mutual community between the Hedera community and the BankSocial community, have had open questions about why this is better than an Ethereum, or why this is better than a Bitcoin or some other network. And decentralized doesn't mean anonymous. So that's probably the first thing to get out of the way here. Decentralized and anonymous are not synonymous with each other. And so if we're looking at the value over an Ethereum, let's say, or over some other proposed or purported decentralized entity structure, the difference between that and Hedera, which is unique in this space entirely, is that Hedera has the governing council of people, of companies that are now liable to the network itself. And it's not a single entity, it's multiple entities. And so they're all jointly and severally liable to the network itself. And for us building mission critical enterprise level financial tools, there's no other place you can build that unless you had the security of knowing that the network itself was secured, not just by decentralization, but also against collusion. I mean, look at what's happened in the Bitcoin community. For as much as they, and this is not a dig at Bitcoin by any stretch, it's just that all the purported, hey, the code can never change. It does change. And there's a whole group of developers. Well, there's 5 people with the keys to the the GitHub that everybody uses for the forks and for the updates to the network. And so when you look at it and you say, well, how decentralized really is something like Bitcoin? If you're building the future of finance, there's nothing even close to what Hedera can provide from an enterprise level security, decentralization, and then the protection from bad actors on the network. I mean, we know that there have been events where bad code was released and rollbacks had to happen on Bitcoin and Ethereum. I mean, this has happened. This is public knowledge. And even though that can continue to happen across all these networks, including Hedera, the ability for Hedera to make those changes because it has the support of a contracted entity like Swirlds Labs, which frankly in the future could change. The council could decide that they want, and that's what's great about this, right? If Swirlds Labs is not performing, not saying you're not, but if it doesn't perform, the council is now decentralized to the point to where they can find another vendor. Or if you're not able to keep up, or there are so many components to why this is the way capitalistic economies will scale in the future, that we saw it early and we said that there's no other way we can build a secure financial enablement platform without something that very closely looks like what Hedera is doing here, and it just happens to be Hedera. So did I miss anything, or did I misstate anything in there, Greg?
No, I don't think so. I mean, decentralization is a spectrum, and you can look at it from different angles, and you can always find, a flavor of decentralization that's not up to your, to your liking. And I guess that's what's great about our communities, or industry in general, is that there are different flavors of different things, and you can pick and choose the one that you want. It's not necessarily a case of one winner takes all. So yeah, I think one of the things that is critically important to me with the way the governing council is set up with Hedera is it was a number of things. First is that if you look through the names of the council members that you can find on hedera.com, you'll find that they go across multiple industries. So there's a desire to not
And
have
geographies,
too many
right?
banks.
Geographies as
Well,
well.
I was going to get to geographies next, but we want to make sure that there is, or rather, Hedera wants to make sure that there is as diverse viewpoint and mindset in the governance of the network, so that we don't end up with a network that's fit for purpose for banks, but doesn't work for the aerospace industry or for any other industry. So that diversity is critically important, and every one of those council members brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to the decision-making process. They're experts in their field, and this is really important when building infrastructure such as Hedera. As you said, John, they dispersed in by geography, and again, there is a conscious decision to make sure that not everyone comes from the US or from Europe or even from one country or one state in the US. So there will be a time, and there probably has been. I'm not in the in those discussions on a daily basis, where a council member was maybe suggested to knock on the door again in a few years from now because it would create too much, or there would be too many in one particular jurisdiction, which is not desirable. Then they're decentralized in terms of node operation. So every council member runs a node, and Hedera keeps careful checks and balances on where those nodes are operated from. And I can assure you that they're not all hosted on Amazon or Google or Microsoft. There is diversity in where those nodes are hosted, again, for decentralization purposes. But I think what is probably one of the most underrated elements of this decentralization is what we call time-based decentralization. Those governing council members can sit on the council for 3 years.
This is my favorite part.
Initially.
Listen to this, everybody. This is my favorite part.
So they get to decide for 3 years, and then the governing council has to essentially approve for them to stay for a further 3 years. So if they've been good citizens, the rest of the council may allow them to stay for another 3 years. If they haven't, the council can ask them to leave. After 6 years maximum, they are necessarily replaced by someone else. So John was talking about collusion earlier. Imagine that, for whatever reason, a number of those council members are able to collude and, take the direction of the network in a particular direction. It would take them a long time to establish that collusion in the first place, only to be thwarted by this notion that some of them will eventually disappear and be replaced by someone else. So they have to rebuild all those relationships once again, which makes it extremely difficult to collude over time. Not that collusion is necessarily a concern. Most decisions, so all votes are one council member, one vote. So whether you're Google or an NGO, you have one vote. It's not governed by your market cap or any of those things. One governing council equals one vote. So it would take a third and often more likely 66% of the governing council to collude in order to steer the network in a particular direction. and that would be very difficult to do. And like I said, over time, they would end up having to rebuild that collusion. So it makes it virtually impossible.
Well,
And the other thing to bear in mind is,
even if they
yeah,
collude,
go
the
on,
one
Tim.
point here is that the rules are public. So once you collude, the rules of your collusion are now public, and the outcomes of your collusion are immutable in this public record. And so, if you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about what that does to a public company who is, required by, and the other thing that's good here is the regulators who are governing these companies are not just the SEC or not just the Singapore financial infrastructure. The FCA. It's not just the FCA in London. It's diverse, and so if there's collusion, there's cross-border collusion. So you're talking about some really bad situations that these companies would get themselves in if they even decided to do this, right?
Yeah, yeah, and the other thing I was going to add, the mere fact that they come from different industry verticals, um, probably makes them somewhat creates a level of competition between them as well. So collusion would have to would compete with competition, within those different verticals. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's it's a dream of a model. I live it and breathe it every day, of course, but I can't think of a better way to govern a network. And seeing that they are not anonymous, they have brand to maintain. And when I
Exactly.
speak today, I speak on their behalf, and I'm very conscious of their brand and what that means to them. It's even less likely that they would do something nefarious compared to someone who's completely anonymous, voting from a wallet, from a large, using a large proportion of coins to sway a vote. Nobody knows who that person is. It's all pseudonymous. And yeah, where's the reputation to lose?
Yeah, there is none, and this was one of the major components and the major reasons why coming to Hedera. Now let's talk about some of the more, the things that maybe are a little bit more apparent. Fair ordering, instant settlement. A lot of people hear these terms and they don't really understand what it means. And the way I described it before is, on Ethereum, fair ordering, which is not fair ordering on Ethereum, you have the opportunity to front run. And who's been in a situation where you're buying a coin, maybe through an ICO type of event, and all of a sudden your transaction got queued behind hundreds of other people because they're front running you because they're paying the network more gas to get to get in front of you. That doesn't exist on Hedera. That's not how this ecosystem was not meant for this. Let's put it like this: it was meant for business to be run in a way that
Hmm.
businesses could rely on. I can't rely, especially if you're talking about financial ecosystems, I can't rely on somebody beating me to the punch if I saw it first. There has to be a concept of fair ordering. To maybe talk about fair ordering and instant settlement as those components of what Hedera does way better than everybody else. And then even bleeding into kind of TPS. You and I have discussed several times TPS, and just so everybody understands what TPS means in the grand scheme. So transactions per second, if we look at the existing kind of financial ecosystems, you have Visa, you have MasterCard, you've got other settlement rails like Swift that are part of those, international rails. Those are collectively doing roughly 10 to 15,000 TPS on a really high volume day. I think Visa's somewhere around 5,000 and Mastercard somewhere around 1 to 2,000, and then Swift is on top of that. So talk through the fair ordering instant settlement and then the ability to scale. I know we've thrown out some crazy numbers before, but just talk us through a little bit of that, because that's another important component of building an enterprise system to power the future of finance.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess those the first point you mentioned about the paying more to get your transaction through faster than others, and TPS go hand in hand. So the vast majority of networks or public networks like Hedera today, distributed ledger technologies or networks or blockchain networks, if you prefer. have low throughput capability. They're not able to process, tens of thousands of transactions per second, let alone hundreds. So one way, essentially, if you look at it from a pure kind of sort of traditional financial model, if there is demand for a resource that is scarce, so the transactions on the network that you can run every second, let's say it runs into, say 100 a second. If that resource is scarce and there is a huge amount of demand for it, then offer and demand comes in, and those who are willing to pay the most get access to the network. That's how most public DLTs work today, because they're not able to offer sufficient capacity for the needs of the world at large. So the excuse is, because we're too slow, it will just be a case of offer and demand. And you find, times where it's impossible to run a transaction on some networks without paying tens of dollars. And the same transaction on a weekend when the network is quiet will cost you $1. Which from an enterprise point of view, if you're a CFO, chief financial officer, or you're talking to your chief financial officer about your budget for the year for your application, simply saying it might be anything between $10,000 and $100,000 a year will not work. You have to be able to tell your CFO exactly how much you need to budget for.
And in our
and if you
space,
budget for 100,000, if you budget for 100,000, you get away with 50. I can tell you the following year you will not get 100,000. So that's one. The primary reason why those networks are essentially providing this sort of increasing scale in pricing as the demand on the network increases. Hedera is highly efficient, which means that we're able to process tens of thousands of transactions per second. So we don't have this need or requirement, if you want, to hike the price when there is demand on the network. So we're able to offer very low transaction fees, not only because the network is very efficient, but also because we can process lots of transactions per second. And those transaction fees are fixed in US dollars. You pay them in cryptocurrency, Hbar, which is the Hedera's native cryptocurrency, but you pay in Hbar at the exchange rate to the US dollar at the time your transaction is run. So if you're an occasional DeFi user, to be honest, it probably doesn't make that much of a difference to you. But if you're an enterprise user running thousands of transactions per day, you can predict how much you're going to spend on the day in US dollar terms. You can purchase Hbar in the morning to fuel your operations for the day, and you're not subject to market fluctuations. And if the price of Hbar goes up by 10 or 20% or drops by 50%, it doesn't change your dollar cost on a daily basis. And that's an essential property of a network that's designed for use of scale by enterprises, beyond day-to-day crypto trading. The other point that you mentioned, John, is this notion of fairness of order. So we talk about fairness of access, which is the first thing that I talked about. There is no way that, as in, you're not going to be priced out of the Hedera network, regardless of what you want to do. Everyone is treated equally. Everyone is treated fairly on the network. The second point is that once you've sent your transaction to the network, because of a property of the network which is leaderless, which has a whole bunch of added benefits as well as what I'm just going to say, is that the decision as to when your transaction is executed by the network rests on the majority of the network. It doesn't ever rest on a single node in the network, which is the case for I think all other networks. I don't know of any other network that works the way Hedera works. So that is important because it means that not only is your transaction accepted by the network straight away, it doesn't sit in a queue waiting until your transaction fee is palatable to the network to execute it. It's executed pretty much in the order that they come in. First, first in, first out is a term that's often used in our technology. Um, and so you're not beholden to having to wait for your transaction to be accepted and eventually executed by the network. And if you're executing a transaction that carries financial compensation or otherwise, nobody can throw their transaction in front of yours in order to profit from what you're about to do, which is possible with other networks. So this makes stock market trading a possibility, even though that's very, very, very high throughput. But notionally, in principle, it's possible to do fair stock market trading on the Hedera network. Probably even fairer than it is on the New York Stock Exchange today.
Probably. Are we going to leave that open to question?
I'm not an expert, so I will leave it as probably.
Well, we can definitely say it'll be more transparent, right? So if somebody's holding some asset and now they're trading it, the value is that it can be as fast or faster in settlement and finality than the stock exchanges. The value add is that, especially for the people, like what I love about you guys over there and Mance and Lehman and the whole community, the Hedera community and the BankSocial community, everybody here, is that we're building this for fairer, faster, and more secure financial access. Like those are the underpinnings of all this, because even though other use cases will be built on top of it, the primary value drivers, it's all paid with money. I mean, these aren't free transactions. And so the whole idea is a fairer financial landscape. And that's why we've decided to, for all the reasons you've listed, and Aaron, I'm sure you can enumerate some more, the credit unions that we're building these networks for, they need to, you talked about the CFO. Well, credit unions are just big CFOs. It's a financial institution, and they have to be able to rely on all of these components that we just discussed, because otherwise, and frankly, we've had discussions. There are people in these institutions that know about Bitcoin and know about Ethereum. We're introducing them to the concept of Hedera, and their jaws are just dropping open. They didn't understand that this type of kind of evolutionary step in transactional processing and capability of data, immutable data, was possible. And we're getting just an incredible amount of traction just by telling them about Hedera and the future we see them being able to benefit from, with the inclusion of Hedera as a major component of the financial ecosystem. It's a tremendous kind of wave we've got behind us in this. And so it's for all the reasons you've just enumerated, though, because, and maybe the most important is the instant fair dollar amount that you can accurately every single time predict. Because at the end of the day, the other thing we love, Greg, is the ability for kind of another wallet to pay for another wallet, right? And because if you look at how a bank works where if you have a bank account, your bank account is really not free. And most people understand that, because the way it works is if you do a certain amount of transactions, you get a free account. If you don't do a certain amount of transactions, they charge you $10 or $5 or $8 a month. Well, the ability to make that orders of magnitude less expensive for a financial institution cannot be overstated, because that goes into the economics of why a bank or a credit union needs to make orders of magnitude more money or charge you orders of magnitude more money just to hold your money and be a safe financial space. The unique thing here is that we really want regulated financial ecosystems. I for one, as much as I love DeFi and this concept of open banking, I don't like the concept of an unregulated, anything goes, no checks and balances. And so being able to have these credit unions and these massive financial institutions understand that this coming wave is something they can embrace because they are not profit motive. The credit union industry is not profit motive. And being able to spend 1,000th of a penny or 1,000th of a dollar to get the benefits that we just described is hugely appealing to these entities. And so, you know, I'll let Aaron, maybe, Aaron, do you have any other thoughts on that outside of what we're talking about? Yeah, there, you raised your hand. Good.
Yeah, it's great timing. Yeah, I think this is going to allow us to start to talk to credit unions about how we help them solve their real world problems in a way that doesn't start with the technology. I think we were early in the crypto days. We were all focused on, hey, it's Bitcoin and it's blockchain, and those things are great and they have been very important. But this allows us to start to move the conversation from, hey, what's the underlying technology, to how would you like a predictable, very fast way to help your members and you yourself move money. I think that the governing council is such a strong part of the solution here that, again, it brings it back to what are the business problems that we're solving. And yes, I do want them to understand Hedera and the value that it brings, but I don't want them to have to care about it. And I think we're getting there.
I would 100% echo that sentiment. It's kind of like a more layman way to say what you just said is when you tell somebody about this new thing called Uber, you really just want to tell them, hey, there's an app, you download it, you push the button, and a car shows up, and they're like, oh my God, this is the most fantastic thing I've ever seen. And so they don't really care that it's powered by Node.js servers, pushing data between financial, and they don't care about all that. And this is the same message, right? It's like, hey, how would you like something that costs 1,000th of a cent, that will settle in finality, that's an immutable record, that's governed by a council of collusion of corporations that are Fortune 500s that are supporting the network, and all this is open and trans. That's They look at that and they say, oh wow, yeah, we think that's amazing. We didn't even know something like that existed. So this is really starting to gain a tremendous amount of traction. We're very excited about the opportunities that are getting created. And Greg, you guys have been a really integral part in helping us understand let us take what we've been saying, to Aaron's point, to the credit unions, is we'll take care of the technology, right? And so in order for us to do that, we need to have a very good understanding of we don't want to make a promise that we can't deliver on vaporware, right? We don't want to deliver vaporware.
Of
And
course.
so Greg and you guys have been tremendous in helping us understand that. And we are to a point now where we're past the how's this going to work? We're past the what do we need to build, and now we're in the mode of these credit unions are saying, oh my God, this is something that we really need to be incorporating into our ecosystems for the future.
Yeah, I totally echo everything you said, John. I mean, the birth of cryptocurrencies, the birth of those public networks has been very much sort of focused or driven by people who wanted to be able to do, open banking or the equivalent of open banking, and trades without borders, and be, custodian of their own funds. And this requires them to have direct access to the network, and generally a fairly deep understanding of how the network operates, and how to operate the different tools and wallets and things that the network requires for them to do so. And these are valid use cases. There's nothing wrong with that. But I see a future where Hedera is infrastructure, much like the cloud is today, much like the internet is now, and all of those have been kind of steps that have got us to more efficient ways of doing work. Starting with the internet and then the cloud, and I believe the LTs have the ability to make a lot of things far more efficient than they are today, with the added benefits that you can work with someone you don't trust, and you don't have to trust them. as opposed to you don't trust them, but you have no choice but to sort of trust them because they're the only intermediary you can work with, for example. So I very much see a world, and we see this today. You know, anyone today who's using Netflix probably doesn't know that behind the scenes, Amazon is the duck pedaling underwater to make it work. Netflix is like a front end. Amazon is delivering the video to you. It's making all this work. You don't know that, or most people don't know that. But I very much see a time where public networks such as Hedera are the Amazon of the Netflix, where yeah, you know, like you guys, you're pitching a solution to the credit union industry. Do they need to know it's Hedera behind the scenes? Probably not. What they need to know is that it's going to do what they want it to do.
And it's going to do it quick. It's going to do it for way less than it could
Yeah.
ever be done. And it's going to be something that allows them to control their money, right? That's, I think, one of the biggest things that is underrated in this. And you brought it up. I think we understand it here in this call is that the future financial system should not be in the hands of custodians. That's one of our big kind of pushes here at BankSocial. And I know that the Swirlds Labs team, for the most part, the people I've talked to at least, all believe in this future of self-custody. And we're going to, you know, we're making a push to say it's no longer DeFi. DeFi is really what open banking has promised for the last 10 years. And so what sounds more palatable to me is that decentralized finance is a component, but it is the bridge that gets us to open banking. And that's what we're focused on is this open banking where you push a button and you don't have to care what goes on behind the scenes because you know it's your money. You know that it can't be, you know, kind of you know, custodian goes down and oh shit, you know, your money's gone. How do we create a more resilient for the people financial infrastructure that is inclusive, that is easy to use, that doesn't have barriers? These are the components of the ecosystem that are the proverbial roots of what we are accomplishing that makes this future a reality. And it's Hedera is an integral part of that for, you know, again, all the reasons we've been mentioning. What about questions from the community? I know you guys typically have a lot of questions. You're doing a lot of listening today, which is awesome. Do you have any questions for Greg or the team or any thoughts based on what we're talking about here? And maybe you're excited and you just want to get up here and scream. We like that too. Whatever you want. And we can continue talking here real quick. So, Greg, you know, we've talked about our kind of just, you know, our stable coin. You guys have a stable coin, I guess. Is that public yet, or did I talk something that I shouldn't mean?
It's been mentioned before by somebody called Sharky Rob. So
okay, all right.
it's sort of public.
Okay, well, maybe we don't breach that topic in here just yet. But you know, there's a lot of stuff we're working on together behind the scenes, and I think we're both excited about the opportunities and the roadmaps, the deliverables. Maybe more important than roadmap is one thing. Like, okay, you got this great roadmap. When does it happen? What is more exciting have been the deliverables. You know, probably not all of them are public yet, just because that's the nature of deliverables. That's what's been most exciting is our ability to co-deliver. You know, we love everything you guys are doing and the advancements you're making and the opportunities you're creating. Kind of that idea of you're the Amazon to our Netflix, you're the bread to our butter. And so we're really excited about the consistency in the deliverables, both from your teams and our teams and how the synergies have been playing out. You know, I don't know how you guys feel internally, but we are very impressed is not the word. We are more than enthused about this, the way these things are playing out.
Yeah, so I mean, I love stable coins. I've lived them and breathed them for the past year or so, and I think there will be a transformational use case in the future. We're not quite there yet because they're primarily used for DeFi, but we're starting to see some offshoots of using stable coins for other things like interbank settlement and so on and so forth. But
Don't let too much out
I
of the bag here, Greg. Don't let too much out of the bag here.
no, indeed. But no, I can see a time where we will be paying for things in stablecoin at shops and so on and so forth. And this is again, going back to the earlier point, where you need a network that is fast, efficient, cheap, so that you can buy your I
And
don't know, your
fair.
loaf of
Don't
bread
forget fair.
for $1. Yeah. Well, you can buy your loaf of bread for $1 and walk out of the shop immediately, and it's cost you next to nothing. It's not cost you, 50 cents to buy your $1 loaf of bread. I don't know how much a loaf of bread is out in the US. And but more specifically, you don't have to wait, 2 minutes or even an hour for your transaction to filter through because there's a whole bunch of other people with higher priorities than getting bread running their transactions on the network.
Well, yeah, I mean, think of governments
Yeah,
and their ability in the future. So, if a government wants to disable Bitcoin, all they have to do is throw a bunch of hash power at it and throw a bunch of transactions at it. And, they've got unlimited money for the most part. Well, that kind of, that can be something that in the Bitcoin world, the Ethereum world would be, terribly difficult to mitigate. I think while it could still pose issues for any public network, there are mitigation strategies and the ability to kind of take that throughput and then you got to think of why would they be doing that, what's the value of it, but it's building a more resilient world is what we're all after here. That's for us, it's for the people.
yeah.
And I think this is a huge part of how capital, one thing that you guys solved with Hedera with the council is the whole, the president, somebody who's in Congress for 38 years and makes all the rules, and then those rules can never be, once you guys put code in place, it's hard to take it out. The same with law, right? Once you put law on the books, much harder to take it out because now people are relying on that code. People are relying on that law. And so the whole governing council being recycled and never giving the ability for those kind of old ideas to perpetuate and never be refreshed. This is how capitalistic ecosystems of the future will be. This solves a major problem with capitalism where it still offers competition. It still completely doesn't break the rules of competition, but it also allows for this network to be used in a way that is competitive and fair, right? Because it's open for everybody and it's maintained by these competitors who still want to win, but it's fair enough to where people can use it and not have the burden of being locked out. All these things we've been talking about. It's so exciting. I mean, we keep reiterating the same things, but it's so exciting. It's hard not to.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. I mean, it's I think to one of the earlier points that was made at the beginning in the introductions, where we've got to in the last 5 years is just nothing short of astonishing, and I'm convinced it's only just the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what's happened, if we look back at probably from 2015 on, there have been ebbs and flows. And what's unique about the situation we're in now is all the prior ebbs and flows have been, let's look at kind of something close to home that hits close to home with Hedera is Libra, right? So there was a time when Hedera was talking with Libra, and then Libra went out and tried to do their own thing. And then they said, oh, well, we don't want to do this. And that froze the market for a period of time. In that 2017, 2018, 2019, people said, well, if Facebook can't do it, then there probably isn't a way forward, at least not now. And I think it was more the mentality of, well, hey, this is probably not possible. Let's not even spend, institutions I'm talking about. Let's not waste cycles on figuring it out. And we're starting to get to the point to where that's no longer a barrier, right? The technologies have advanced enough. The mentality has advanced enough to where the train is here. I mean, you're even hearing stuff about Swift now wanting to use these types of ecosystems. What I think that what's happening now, though, is this decoupling of centralized players trying to remain relevant
and I'm not going to name names here, but I'm sure you could go throw a dart at a Fortune 500 board and see that there are entities that are refusing to change their business model, and they're using crypto as a custodial framework to remain relevant into the near term. And that's what's going to change. That's going to, I think, be the next wave, is that the decentralized open model for connecting people and providing direct benefit with the fewest amount of middlemen is where we're going to evolve. That's going to be kind of the next ebb and flow over the next 24 to 36 months. And we're probably right at the beginning of that. You see big companies really leaning into trying to maintain market share, but not really changing their business model, more just bolting on crypto and hoping that's enough to get people to say, "Oh man, I want to continue to use that company." This is going to be a very interesting time. I think the lives of people all around the world due to these technologies. And I don't think I'm understating this, especially given the fact that these are financial systems that have been mechanisms for just strangling the world. Nothing else throughout the history of humanity has been used like financial tools have been used to strangle humanity. And that's something now that we're starting to break free from. And that more than anything is what we are working. And that's really the genesis of the name BankSocial. So how can we create this social banking environment that benefits for the people? Well, we're getting real close to the end of the time. We haven't really had any questions come up. Anybody want to come up and ask any questions in the final few minutes that we have? All right. Well, are there any closing remarks? Aaron, Nate, Anthony, Aaron, I'll let you go, and then I'll let Greg go, and then we'll close it. We'll close it off.
I don't really have anything. Just really excited to keep this journey moving.
Nate, Anthony, any closing thoughts here before we wrap it up?
Yeah, no, great discussion, everyone. I think Hedera is so well thought out. There's so many features about it that go underrated, and we touched on a few of those today. So great to hear about those. Thank you so much, Greg, for participating.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Really excited to kind of bridge the gap between the BankSocial and Hedera community moving forward. So looking forward to building relationships with all of you.
Greg, I'll give you kind of the last thoughts here, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, for spending the time listening. It's tough to fit everything in 1 hour. There's so much more. So I do apologize for brain dumping. Maybe worth a re-listen if there's anything you've missed. But no, I mean, for me, what BankSocial and the team are building is exactly why Hedera was built in the first place. And I think that one of the things that we are going to see in the next few months or years will be where those networks that or this network that I'm busy building with with the rest of the team is going to provide huge utility to many different use cases around the world, and the more of those use cases, the better.
Well, very well said. Thank you so much, Greg, for joining us today. I'm sure we'll have you back, soon to discuss some more of kind of the things we've been working on jointly and apart from each other. Again, we really appreciate it, and have a great day, everybody. All the love and all the power. Thanks for coming, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Thank
Bye,
you, everyone.
everybody.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.